IDEA is a law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation. IDEA governs how states and public agencies provide early intervention, special education, and related services to more than 6.5 million eligible infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities. IDEA is split up into three main subparts. Part A lays out the basic foundation for the rest of the Act. It defines the terms used within the Act as well as providing for the creation of the Office of Special Education Programs, which is responsible for administrating and carrying out the terms of IDEA. Part B of IDEA regulates services for individuals with disabilities ages 3 to 21. In order to receive all of the services offered under the IDEA Act, an individual must first be considered eligible. To be considered eligible, the individual must go through many steps. For example, evaluations must be done as well as documentation must be provided of the suspected disability. Part C of the IDEA Act provides services for infants and toddlers with disabilities and their families. Infants and toddlers, along with their families, get an Individualized Family Service Plan, an IFSP, which is a plan for special services for young children with developmental delays. An IFSP is only for the infants and toddlers. Once you hit age 3 and up, you get what is called an Individualized Education Plan, an IEP. Some of the services offered to the infants and toddlers under the IDEA Act would be an early intervention program. Some of the benefits of IDEA is that it helps individuals with disabilities get the education they deserve and not be excluded. It also protects their rights to a free, appropriate, and public education, with additional and all services being provided to them to help them learn. Public schools and local school boards are responsible for ensuring that every child with a disability receives a free, appropriate, and public education, also known as FAPE. The Act also gives the individuals the right to receive an IEP and to be able to learn in a least restrictive environment. This means that the individual must be allowed to participate and be a part of a regular education classroom with services provided to and for them. Such services include classroom modifications, supplemental aids and services, and alternative instructional methods. IDEA also provides the right for parents or guardians to always be active participants involving their child. Educational agencies and local school boards must ensure that the parents of a child with a disability are members of any group that make choices regarding the placement or LRE, least restrictive environment, of that child. IDEA has many safeguards to protect the child and parents. These safeguards help parents and students enforce their rights under federal law. Safeguards protect parental access to information pertaining to placement and transition planning. Procedures are put in place to resolve any disagreements between parents and schools regarding the placement of a student. Parents have the right to view or review all of their child's educational records and know in advance about meetings, such as evaluations or re-evaluations.
With the law of IDEA and state protecting all kids with disabilities, it is almost absurd that our Secretary of Education is unclear of what the law entails. When asked about the law in place for IDEA, Betsy Devos said it should be left up to the states whether or not they want to follow the law, even though this law is a federal one and must be followed. When she was told that the law was one on a federal level and informed on the issue, she then revoked her previous statement, showing she had no knowledge of the law prior to the interview. A billionaire from one of Michigan's wealthiest families, Devos has never been a teacher or worked as a school administrator, and her children did not attend any public school. How can we have someone with such a large hand in the education system who has no experience with it and lacks knowledge on some of the most basic areas, to the point that other senators and politicians are left shaking their heads at the answers she provides? Her own children have never been to a public school, and she has not dealt with a public school to know anything about IDEA or IEPs and anything along those lines. Here's a short clip of DeVos' Senate confirmation hearing.
You can't say definitively today that guns shouldn't be in schools?
Well, I will refer back to Senator Enzi and the school that he was talking about in Wapiti, Wyoming. I think probably there, I would imagine that there's probably a gun in the school to protect from potential grizzlies.
And if confirmed, will you insist upon that equal accountability in any K-12 school or educational program that receives federal funding, whether public charter, or private?
I support accountability.
Equal accountability for all schools that receive federal funding.
I support accountability.
Okay, is that a yes or a no?
I support accountability.
Do you not want to answer my question?
I support accountability.
Okay, let me ask you this. I think all schools that receive taxpayer funding should be equally accountable. Do you agree with me or not?
Well, they don't. They're not today.
But I think they should. Do you agree with me or not?
Well, no, because...
You don't agree with me.
Mrs. DeVos, do you have any direct experience in running a bank?
Senator, I do not.
Have you ever managed or overseen a $1 trillion loan program?
I have not.
How about a $1 billion loan program?
I have not.
Okay, so no experience in managing a program like this.
The proficiency is if they've reached a like third grade level for reading, etc.
No, I'm talking about the debate between proficiency and growth.
Yes.
What your thoughts are on that.
Well, I was just asking to clarify then.
Well, this is a subject that has been debated in the education community for years.
With Betsy DeVos's limited understanding of IDEA and her developing ideas for the education system, the future does not look very bright for students with special needs. During DeVos's Senate confirmation meeting, she was asked if K-12 schools should be required to meet the requirements of IDEA, and DeVos commented that it is a matter that should be best left up to the states. If this is the case, each state would be able to decide if they wanted to follow the IDEA requirements. Schools that once accommodated students with special needs can now refuse to educate these students, and if schools do choose to admit students with special needs, they are not obligated to provide necessary behavioral and educational interventions and can refuse to continue services at any time. If this happened, families would be forced to move from state to state in order to find a school that will accommodate their child. In addition to this, DeVos is planning on implementing a voucher program. As a huge advocate for private schools, DeVos wants to set up a program where families would be giving voucher money to send their children to private school. However, these vouchers almost never cover the full tuition costs required to attend a private school. Furthermore, additional services such as occupational therapy and one-on-one instruction will not be paid for by the private school, forcing parents to pay thousands of extra dollars on unforeseeable expenses. If parents still choose to participate in a voucher program, they are required to sign away their rights given to them by IDEA or a 504 plan. As if this wasn't enough, there is also no guarantee that a student would be receiving the quality of education their parents hope for. Many states do not hold their private schools to an accountability standard in special education, meaning they are not required to annually assess students, they do not need to report any form of records taken on their students, and they do not have to take any action if their students are viewed as low performing. Private schools also don't have to follow federal laws that require rigorous credentials of teachers. I am a special ed teacher in an administrative role. We help 18 to 21-year-old students transition to productive lives. I'm also in Texas, where we have an abysmal record of providing services to special ed students. I'm terrified of the potential impact of making special education a state-by-state decision. Adults with disabilities have one of the highest rates of unemployment of any group in the country and usually end up on their parents' couch or institutionalized to some degree. Without the education, social skills, and job training they get through special ed services, they will need more long-term supports, Medicaid, SSI, and etc. It all gets expensive and is devastating for these students and families.
A teacher's goal is to shape world citizens. Students with learning disabilities and likewise their typical peers who stand to learn so much from working side by side. Students currently receiving special education services constitutes 13% of the total school-age population. DeVos's confusion and ignorance around IDEA is bewildering considering it's a federal mandate. My hope is that she will visit classrooms and conference with real educators to some perspective on this issue in particular.
Betsy DeVos's thoughts on decentralizing legislation such as IDEA are appalling. There are some areas in education where states could have more control, but when dealing with children with disabilities of all types, we should know that we are nationally responsible for ensuring that children are obligated to receive equal opportunities in every state. My biggest fear is that her push for school choice will leave a great number of talented young people with no options for quality education.